Hey, thanks to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring today's video. When browsing the web, safety and security are two important aspects that should be obvious, but sometimes it needs to be said out loud, else your grandma's gonna have another 7 unneeded extensions on her Internet Explorer window. Oh, it's Edge now, my bad. Anyway, the amount of surveillance, limitation, and data mining done on your personal info on a daily basis is upsetting to say the least. Most of the time, you're not even aware of it happening, and finding the right solution is not always obvious. That is, unless you use Surfshark VPN and its easy one-for-all solution. With the click of a button on Windows, Android, or Apple products, Surfshark turns you into an anonymous and hard-to-track user, giving you more freedom on the internet, keeps you away from prying eyes, and prevents companies from doing very asinine things like geo-blocking, where video and streaming services restrict your viewing options simply because of where you live. I mean, how else am I going to stream Fresh Prince during my next trip to, I don't know, Arkansas? Either way, Surfshark makes that a non-issue. Start up their service, choose your location, refresh the page, and bam, you're finally tasting forbidden fruit that really shouldn't be forbidden in the first place. Those that use the link in the description below and enter the special code Johnny will not only get 83% off their initial order, but the next 4 months are also completely free. That's a third of the year. Goodness gracious. Thanks to Surfshark VPN for the sponsor, and thank you for help supporting this channel. Now let's continue on with the show. Been some year, huh? Well, truth be told, I didn't really have anything special planned for the end of this year. I kind of just wanted to be done and over with already. All the projects I'm really looking forward to begin in 2021 and beyond, but there's still one more day left in this year, so let's hopefully end it with a bang. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I don't think it was too surprising to see Hyrule Warriors get a continuation, considering one, we're sort of between major releases, there's almost always something to tie fans over in the meantime, and two, the reception of the first game, despite being on a cursed console, was still great. And then the 3DS version would eventually see the light of day. Still haven't played that one for myself, if I'm being honest. I'm in no rush. It always looked like a lesser version of the console game, and I wasn't exactly thrilled at the thought of it. In 2018, though, the definitive re-release will be released for the Nintendo Switch, containing all the extra content that was eventually added to the original game via DLC. So clearly there's still some money to be made with the highly kinetic hack-and-slash bonanza starring everyone's favorite Zelda characters. And just to clear this up now, yeah, at some point I will do a round 2 on the first game, since the definitive edition more than warrants a revisit, and because I consider it different enough compared to this game we're about to look at, because in a few ways, Age of Calamity is sort of its own beast. Was not expecting them to tie this game to Breath of the Wild as a prequel. Yeah, remember how the setup for Breath of the Wild involved the destruction of Hyrule Castle and how Calamity Ganon wrecked everyone's shit, and then 100 years pass and then we wake up to clean up the mess? Age of Calamity is set during Ganon's initial shit wrecking, so we're kind of going into this game already figuring out how it's going to end. That usually comes with the prequel territory, but hey, if we can still go out in a Dynasty Warriors blaze of glory, that's what really matters, right? Yes and no. But before I can go deeper into the plot, here's a timestamp to help you skip past all the spoilers. Although I will warn now, the gameplay part of this review is also going to have a few visual spoilers regarding stages and characters unlocked. So if you're looking to going into this completely blind, stop watching the video. I appreciate you watching the video, but you should probably stop watching the video. Right, so again, Age of Calamity is set a century before the events of Breath of the Wild. When Hyrule's forces were preparing to deal with Calamity Ganon's original onslaught, the champions of Hyrule were less dead, and when the Divine Beasts were first awakened to aid in Hyrule's defense. However, we're already thrown a curveball as soon as the intro begins, because as we see events retold, this little mini-guardian, eventually known as Tarako, finds himself traveling back in time to help our heroes defeat Ganon's forces. Well, I don't recall a single mention of a tiny guardian helping Zelda and Link in the past, so thinking we might be in an alternate timeline here. And that's exactly what happens. Everyone that played Breath of the Wild knows that Hyrule got decimated by Ganon and his malicious influence. The Guardians corrupted, the Divine Beasts corrupted, the Champions dead, Zelda sealed away with Ganon, Link 100 years sleep. So he actually got out pretty easily. In Age of Calamity, however, as Ganon attempts to take the Divine Beast for himself, the champions from the future suddenly enter the scene thanks to little Tarako here, and with them assisting their ancestors, we're just straight up trying to alter history here, something that by the end of the game, everyone succeeds in doing. Yeah, so it starts out as a prequel and ends in an alternate continuity where everyone lives, probably to open the door to more sequels. Set in the Breath of the Wild world? Maybe that's what they're doing. And okay, a part of me is surprised and at the same time not. Because when I heard that this game, the Dynasty Warriors spinoff, was going to act as a prequel to Breath of the Wild, I thought, you know what? That's actually brilliant. Because a game set during the Great War that almost ended everything makes perfect sense to use the Dynasty Warriors formula for that. But I was also like, are they really going to make the Dynasty Warriors spinoff game canon to the Breath of the Wild lore? I had my doubts, and I'm speaking as a Kingdom Hearts fan, and assuming you didn't watch my marathon, that series doesn't give a flying fuck about the genre that next game's in to expand the story and lore. Sure, the gimmicky card game, better believe that shit is 100% canon. While I'm glad to see everyone in better spirits by the end, I do like my happy endings, I can't help but feel the decision to ultimately make it an alternate timeline as a cop-out. Yeah, I know that would require the game to have a glory ending if you ever saw that movie. It might have been too depressing even for Zelda standards, but I also think it would have been the perfect opportunity to be an impactful and gripping addendum to Breath of the Wild's narrative. A story, if you recall from my review, I didn't think was anything spectacular, nothing terrible, but nothing special. Age of Calamity could have been better further fleshing out this game's world instead of relegating all that shit to optional flashbacks in the original game. It does miss that mark, I feel. In fact, there isn't much that's explored in this story that hasn't already been covered in Breath of the Wild. Link's stoic behavior and his ability to eat volcanic rocks, Zelda's struggle to awaken her hidden power, Rivali being an asshole, shit we've all seen before. This game is literally just us traveling across Hyrule, recruiting the champions, getting the Divine Beast up and running, and then taking the fight again. Things don't necessarily work out at first, but then the future champions show up to lend some assistance, and then that's it. Ganon's eventually defeated. There's this dude named Aster, but you know the minute he's introduced, you can just tell this guy is going to be the typical evil warlock for Ganon that you know at some point is going to get Ganon cut, and like clockwork, bam. A glorified vessel for Ganon with next to no character to speak of. They wanted the final boss to be something more humanoid than the giant pig we fought at the end of Breath of the Wild, most likely. I don't really care in the end, but come on, that's the only reason why this dude exists. Seeing the champions interact with their future generation was nice and heartwarming, but more could have been done with this, especially with Sidon and Mipha. This dude is finally reunited with his long-dead sister, and don't get me wrong, there's some moments where the two trade some heart-to-hearts, and that was great to see. But these exchanges were just too brief. At least we got some more screen time with Urbosa. She can practice her sexist tribal rituals on me any day. But somebody please tell her soldiers that the mask is supposed to go over their noses. Fucking hell, be considerate. For all of its missed opportunities, it does have some bright spots. The game itself might chug in combat, but presentation is more of the great-looking aesthetic from Breath of the Wild, complete with great character models and good voice acting. Dialogue is a little stilted, and I wish in-game exchanges were fully voiced because it's hard to keep up with the conversation when you're in the middle of a huge combo and the text box is scrunched up in the corner of the screen. But it's perfectly passable beyond those tidbits. The chemistry between Zelda and Taraka was also damn cute. My inner cynic immediately saw this as a marketing tool. You know what Zelda needed? A fucking Star Wars droid. It even makes similar noises. But Tarako's significance to Zelda's upbringing is what makes it work. Again, they are small moments, but moments that nevertheless captured my heart and tugged at the heartstrings. I love you, little Tarako. Ooh, that's a no bueno.
All right, now that we're out of the spoiler bubble, let's talk about the game. And much like the original Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity is a game you pretty much know exactly what you're getting into just by looking at a trailer.
It's a Musou game. You pick your favorite character, your favorite weapon, and destroy everything in sight, capturing outposts to increase your standing. Though I did notice the distinct lack of a morale system in this game, so outposts sort of lose some significance because of that. But there's still some mini-bosses to defeat when they show up, and you clear the stage after meeting the specific victory condition, which is usually done by killing the major threat of the area. Age of Calamity is a Breath of the Wild-centric game, though, unlike the first Hyrule Warriors, which acted as a celebration of the whole Zelda series, period. While it does make for a more centralized theme in the world, it does feel limiting in multiple aspects. All of the bosses and enemies are just ripped from Breath of the Wild. The moblin designs, the elemental wizrobes, the stone golems, and you can't forget about the Lynels, which even with more stylized combat, they can still give you a ton of shit. The game's status as a prequel to Breath of the Wild also constricts the number of characters available to play, though I should stress there's still a healthy amount to pick, from Link, Zelda, or Impa, the 4 champions of Hyrule, and about 6 or 7 other characters I can't really mention without spoiling the story. Kinda makes editing this one a little tricky, but I did warn you at the beginning of the video, so yeah. Strictly speaking, in terms of combat, the variety is still there. Everyone has a distinctive playstyle that puts a different spin on how you may complete a stage or handle a mission objective. Some characters excel at exploiting boss weaknesses, others are great for plowing through the horde. Overall, the roster is still lacking though, and about a third redundant in my eyes, not as diverse as the selection available in the original Hyrule Warriors, which I'm hoping gets rectified with DLC should this game get any. I'm just not sure on that. Well, if you thought the music of Breath of the Wild was a little too calm and quiet, Age of Calamity has some wonderful orchestral arrangements that were pleasant to listen to. But sadly, none of it rocks the same type of energy the music had in the first Hyrule Warriors. It's a more grounded soundtrack that, yes, fits with the Breath of the Wild aesthetic, but makes for a pretty weak Musou soundtrack. I want to rock out and get pumped up, but at no point in Age of Calamity did I think the game wanted me to. What, does the king not like rock? What a shit. The decision to stick strictly to Breath of the Wild's aesthetic did have its perks though. It allowed the developers to enhance the Musou gameplay with what made Breath of the Wild fun and unique. The original game had the apothecary for item usage and buffs and all that, but this game lets you gather ingredients to make food that gives everyone in that session a temporary buff, like increased movement speed and damage, and as you keep playing the story, you can unlock a ton of shops that contain the necessary items you need to make these dishes and other enhancements. Also that you're not grinding too much, but seeing as this is a Musou game, grinding is like 50 to 60% of the experience anyway, isn't it? Everyone can string combos and make things explode all the same, but everyone also has access to the Sheikah Slate abilities. Stasis to freeze an enemy in place and lay on the damage, watching them explode in a brilliant light as time catches up to them. I found this to be the best one just in terms of shattering weak points with proper timing. There's the remote bombs to break through defenses and create some good crowd control. Cryonis to interrupt enemies dashing right towards you. It's like a Looney Tunes skit watching them run into a block head first. And finally, there's Magnesis, the thing you used once or twice to catch a flying hammer or to rub boxes against enemies like a failed Gmod video. I love how all the characters have different means of using these tools as well. While someone like Link just chucks bombs left and right like an asshole, Zelda instead summons a giant bomb on wheels with more controlled aim. It's things like this that add that spice of variety to gameplay, even with a more limited roster. You can also use these different elemental rods by defeating Wizrobes. You only got so many uses before needing a recharge, but these are so fun to use against bosses because you can expose their weak points earlier than usual, and I just love using them on certain terrain to kill a whole bunch of enemies at once. Using the ice rod on a body of water never gets old. For defensive maneuvers, you not only have shield parrying, but you also have the returning Flurry Rush, one of the most satisfying mechanics to pull off in Breath of the Wild. Dodging an attack at the right moment and following up in bullet time with an all-out assault. A little tricky to time, but a technique you'll get the hang of. Shit, with all this game's slowdown during combat, you might be mastering it sooner than you think. The game is sort of hampered with the standard flaws of Musou titles. They want to squeeze all these models into the screen for visual spectacle, but at the expense of graphical fidelity, performance, and load times. Man, these can get long, some stages taking about a whole minute to load. The tips and tricks and story interludes help soften the blow, but a couple of times I thought my game just straight up froze. And there was an uncomfortable number of times where my camera was caught in awkward angles during boss fights and narrow encounters. The lock-on can be more cumbersome than helpful, just a heads up. There's even a few points where you directly control one of the 4 divine beasts, each equipped with ridiculously powerful weapons and a giant fuck you laser to seal the deal. But these ended up being the weakest element of the game for me. Like, the idea is great on paper, but what's here are shallow, boring slogs that get too samey remarkably quickly. I'm also not a fan of their movement options. I mean, they're gargantuan, they're taking those big steps, but that size comes at a cost. They're slow, they turn like shit, and aiming their attacks with the controller's gyroscope or right analog stick otherwise doesn't feel very good. God, it's like trying to parallel park with a tank. But going back to the characters, I tended to stick with Link because, well, I'm Mr. Basic Bitch over here. But what can I say? He's got amazing combos, and whittling down an enemy's weakness was never a tough task for the dude, especially when using the Sheikah abilities. And weapon durability is not a thing in this game if you really despise that from Breath of the Wild, so all of your new toys are yours forever until you run out of inventory space and realize, hey, you really don't need that mop. It's a fucking mob. A wooden sword? A soup ladle? Is this really how I'm being rewarded for having a Breath of the Wild save on my Switch? Bunch of fucking cocks. I noticed that even though the game has characters like Daruk who can wield heavy weapons, or Mipha who handles long-range spears with elegant grace, Link is still given a lot of different weapons that pack different fighting styles. So if you want to, there's nothing stopping you from just playing the game with Link. Not that I didn't enjoy experimenting with others, I wasn't a fan of Impa at first because her initial style wasn't the same as Impa from the first Hyrule Warriors, one of my favorite characters of that game. And I wasn't entirely sure how the symbol mechanics worked in combat. But once I got a basic understanding, my god, she and her Sheikah clones are a force of nature, it's unreal. I hate the fact that I liked Revali more than I thought I would, because the man is as appealing as a leathery ballsack, but fucking combat, he's got the speed and the aerial maneuverability. You win this round, you absolute taint. Urbosa was my second most used character, unsurprising as that may sound. Powerful strikes with lightning to enhance their area effect, you gotta love that shit. But Link is the one I felt the most consistent with, and until I started just relying on the Master Sword, the blade that no longer requires a recharge period, it was fun trying out the other weapon styles. The two-handed weapons I probably enjoyed a little too much because these have berserker attacks that hit hard at the cost of some health, but if you don't get hit, you can recover that health expended with the push of a button. Just don't take a hit while your hearts are white or else you're losing all of them. A risk versus reward style of gameplay that I found pretty exhilarating. Yeah, Link was all I needed for my story run. Even if you decided to just stick with one character, treasures are constantly rewarded for all characters in the roster, including more weapons to equip or sell back for some rupees, or fuse them together with other weapons so that you can get a stronger sword with added benefits. Every stage and challenge has a recommended level to give you an idea of the upcoming threat ahead, and if say only one character is at that level threshold because of preference or what have you, you can easily level the others up by spending rupees at the military camp. Just like that, everyone is back on equal terms just in case I need to do some character swapping in the middle of combat. And that's something I really like in Age of Calamity. Most of the time you're given control of multiple characters for that campaign, allowing you to easily switch between them with the D-pad. If you're running low on health or if you know the other character has a full special meter to unleash, switching characters is a great way to turn the tide when you really need it. If your current mission objective has multiple goal points, you can order the other characters to go to those specific points in the map, and when you're done handling your objective, all it takes is one push of the D-pad to switch to the other character already assigned at their mark, cutting down backtracking significantly. That is so great, I cannot stress that enough. And it makes me feel as if I have more control over my army, even if most of my squads still lurk around like used condoms that are only good for staring some rocks away. That was a weird shot, wasn't it? The core gameplay of Age of Calamity is fantastic. Bearing the Divine Beast levels, combat feels just as good as ever, and the added Sheikah abilities add a refreshing spin to standard Musou gameplay. But as before, the game can be a massive grind. The story mode took me about 12 hours to finish, completing all the campaign stages and doing some side quests along the way. But look at this map. Look at how many side quests there are. The quantity of the content is through the roof, but the quality of the content offered in Age of Calamity is all the same hack and slash action you'd come to expect from a Warriors title. Kinetic, flashy, in-your-face, absolutely mindless shit. And those side quests I mentioned are just more of the same stuff you do in story missions with added conditions like time limits or being unable to take any damage. It bears repeating, this is not something I recommend marathoning through. This is something you play in spurts. Worth $60? There is a ton of fucking shit to do if you want to complete the game. Go for all those weapons, meals, bonus hearts, clothing items for Link and the others, and it's all strictly cosmetic, and they have dyes too. Glamour truly is the end game, even in Age of Calamity. And those godforsaken Korok seeds are back as well, just what I needed, more golden shit nuggets. No doubt, Age of Calamity as a whole, it's a huge time investment, but the content is largely homogenous. And if you're okay with that, if that's what you wanted from a Musou game, then by all means go for it. It's a step up mechanically speaking from the original Hyrule Warriors, and I love the accessibility. But none of it has the same energy as the first Hyrule Warriors, the same pizzazz. I liked the art style of the original more, and it might be a controversial take, despite Breath of the Wild looking great in its own way. The music, that's a big one. They don't even compare. The first game wins by a landslide. And I know Age of Calamity is still relatively new, and the definitive edition of Hyrule Warriors is the culmination of all the DLC throughout the years, but to go from that robust roster of characters to what Age of Calamity offers, that's a bit of a letdown. Age of Calamity is a good time, but didn't leave that much of an impression as the first Warriors game did. And I certainly don't think you need to spend $60 on this now. You can sit on this one for a bit.
All right, so I didn't really write a script for this part, just kind of gonna ramble for a moment. My apologies if I stammer through my words or take very long to get to my points. I only have so much coffee too, so I better make this quick. I mean, I'm not really saying much besides, well, thank you for everyone for watching throughout the year, and I truly hope that you have a safe and happy New Year's as we're finally putting 2020 in a plastic bag and throwing that shit out the back seat and just watch it shrink in the rearview mirror. It's not going to get magically better just because it hits January 1st, 2021, but to finally put this god-awful year behind us, I know is more than enough for some folks considering everything that's happened this year. All I can really say from this point, well, I'm going to make a different thank you video for those that really just hammer in how much I appreciate you guys just sticking with me through this miserable fucking year and just the hardships that everyone's gone through. So I'm going to leave most of my schmaltzy stuff for them, but if you're watching now, if you don't have the time to watch that video, whatever have you, thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Here's to a much, I don't know, that's a really low bar, isn't it? Anything's fucking better than 2020. But I hope you all enjoy yourselves anyway. Have a safe 2021. I will catch you guys in the next video. We're getting to start a new marathon pretty soon, and I hope you guys look forward to that. 2021 for me, I'm going to start with a bang, motherfuckers. Thank you all for watching. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask if you decide to go outside. Have yourselves a fantastic night in New Year's, and take care. Happy New Year, everybody.